Hey guys, welcome back to the Creative Brand Summit. I'm Kirsten Sherwood from Copper Kettle Co. and I'm so excited that you're here with us today. In just a moment, I'll introduce our speaker, but if you find yourself needing to leave partway through today's presentation, don't worry, this video will be available for 24 hours after its initial airtime. We'd also love to hear where you're from, what kind of business you have, and something you're struggling with in your branding if you want to chime into the chat box. If you have any questions, comments, talking points, exclamations, whatever the case may be during this presentation, I encourage you to chat with us. I'll be here live to chat and answer any questions that you may have during the presentation too. I have Rosemary Watson here with us today, and she is going to talk to us about Instagramming like a magazine, which I'm like freaking excited to hear about this, this whole spiel because that sounds awesome to me. Really quick before I introduce her officially, Rosemary spends her days dreaming up creative ways to help her lovely clients build better businesses and attract more clients. She lives in a suburb of Phoenix with her 6 kids, husband, and lots of animals, which I love her description. Rosemary, welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much. This is going to be so fun.
Yeah. Would you mind telling us a little bit about maybe your opt-in and what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so like you said, I'm going to talk about treating Instagram like a magazine. It's just a different approach. So we're going to have a conversation about that, but I'm going to give you this really nice tool set at the very end. It's a bundle, so you're going to be able to kind of create these branded 9 grids, and you're going to, I'm going to explain that a little bit better later on in the presentation, but it's just something that kind of gives you a nice, neat package. So you can just take it and plug it into your brand if it's a good fit for your brand. And then you don't have to think about it. All the content's there for you, and you just plug in the things that you want to plug in to make it kind of applicable to yourself.
Awesome. That sounds so great, and I'm so excited to hear your presentation. For everybody watching right now, Rosemary's opt-in is just to the right of this video. You can check it out right underneath her beautiful mug over there. Otherwise, go ahead, Rosemary. We're so excited to hear your presentation, and the floor is officially yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me again. I'm super honored to be here. There's so many talented people in this entire summit. It's unbelievable. So I just appreciate the opportunity. So I'm super excited, but I'm going to jump on over to our presentation. So let me share my screen here, and then I'm going to open it up. So yes, welcome. This is Instagram like a magazine. So we are here at the Creative Brand Summit, and this presentation is kind of knowledge that I've gathered up after I've been using Instagram. Let me move this over. Oh, I have to do, hold on, let me play it. It's me, forgot about that. This is me. So I've been using Instagram super intentionally since March of 2016. Now that's not that long. I was on Instagram for 4 years before that. I was one of the first people on Instagram to jump in because I was a designer for Rana Ferrer. Now, I don't know if you know who she is, but she's the one that owns the app Rana Designs. And so she was just really big on social media. She's one of the first people on Pinterest. She's one of the first people to invite to be on Instagram. And so because I was part of her team, I was invited to join these platforms really early on. So it was really cool to just kind of jump in, use it, see what it was all about. And because I was a photographer, I did photography as a portrait photographer, a wedding photographer, a newborn. I did senior portraits. I was really in that. I tried everything in the photography industry. And so I think because you're in that industry, you kind of use tools a little bit faster than the general population, I feel like. So I was just really lucky to be able to dive in to this amazing platform kind of early on. So for about 4 years, I used Instagram, and I wasn't 100% sure about the direction. Like I knew when you see something and you're like, it's awesome, but you can't quite pinpoint what it is they're doing that's awesome. Like you're like, dang, I know I want that, but I don't know how to do it. Like I see these people doing it, but I just can't quite figure it out. So the more I would look at it, I would post things kind of randomly. I never had a rhyme or reason. I never had a schedule. I never had an editorial calendar. I was just posting when I felt like posting. And here and there, I'd have some good things. I'd have some good posts that got a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, a lot of likes. And then I would hear crickets for a long time. Or I would have a really beautiful photo that I would post, and I would love it and be like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then I would just randomly post other stuff that wouldn't be a good fit. And I was just like, gosh, this is not going together. Like individually, these posts make sense, but they're not working together cohesively. And I don't feel like the people that are going to be paying me money, hiring me for either photography or stock photography or whatever it is that I'm offering at the time, I don't feel like what I do is coming across on this platform. And for me, my business is very, very visual. It's photography. So I felt like that was super important to nail down. So after really kind of digging deep in March of last year, 2016, I really decided I was going to be intentional about it, put a lot of effort toward it, and form a plan. And I committed to posting 3 times a day, every single day. And I've stuck to that schedule pretty rigidly for over 18 months now. And I've grown like so much quicker than I did before. I was almost at 4,000 followers in March of 2016, and now I'm at 14.1K. So that's a pretty big difference, you know, for someone who didn't put money towards it. Like I never paid for ads or paid for followers or any of that stuff. It just grew completely organically through effort and patience and just a lot of hard work and creating strategies and thinking about things and making sure there's a purpose behind the things that I put online. So that's me. My handle is at Rosemary Watson if you want to go take a peek at my feed if you haven't before. And you can just see the things that I've posted. Let me click onto the next slide. So Instagram, there are so many ways you can approach this platform. I've done a lot of different things. I've tried out a lot of different things. And one way is treating it like a magazine. And this is only just one way to give you a little bit more direction, give you a good focus, and make it really cohesive and consistent. So if you're like me and you just feel like there's something missing, like it's not fitting together, it's not telling your brand story. Because really for you, especially if you're a business owner, that's the whole reason we're online, is to make sure we can attract people that don't know who we are, so they can know who we are. They can at first glance like us. So the things that they see, they're like, I like that. I like her. I think I'm going to follow her. And they click follow. And then ultimately you turn that into trust. So you're showing up consistently every single day. So they're knowing you, they're liking you, then they're trusting you because you're showing up every day on this platform enough to when you have something to sell to them, you have either a service or a product to sell, they will then give you dollars because you've built up that know, like, and trust factor. And it's very, I wouldn't say it's easy to do. It's simple, but it's takes a lot of hard work to do on Instagram. So if you're going to use that platform for that, finding new customers, getting them to like you and trust you, and then giving you money, a way to do that is to make sure all of your stuff is very cohesive. It's very brand consistent, and they know what to expect when they come to your feed. They're not just coming in here and then all of a sudden some random thing pops up and they're like, that doesn't make sense, right? You always want it to make sense. So this is just an approach to get you there, to that point where everyone knows what you're all about. And that goal, when they see a post randomly in their feed, like on their home feed, they'll stop and say, that's Rosemary's, or that's Copper Kettle Co., or that's, they already know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like that's the whole goal, is for them to see your content and know it's yours because you created that much trust. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is creating that. So we're going to gram like a mag. We're going to use Instagram just like a magazine. And that might sound funny to you, but let me give you a little bit of context behind this. So for example, imagine your Instagram feed is a magazine. When we walked into Barnes & Noble, I don't know if any of you have not been in Barnes & Noble, I'm sure every single person has, where would we find you? So imagine you're walking into Barnes & Noble, you pass the Starbucks, or you get a pumpkin spice latte if it's the fall, and then you walk towards the newsstand where it has all of the magazines and newspapers and all of that stuff. What section would your magazine be in? And then what kind of magazine best fits your personality? There's tons of magazines. There's hundreds of different magazines about every topic under the sun. I'm not kidding you. There's probably like underwater basket weaving magazines. There's at least, I know for a fact, tattoo magazines. There's cooking magazines. There's car magazines. There's home DIY, woodworking, farming, almost anything you can think of, there's magazines. And that's the same with Instagram. There's a million different Instagram feeds that all have like really central messages to them, but there's dozens of messages, right? There's so many different things that you could be on Instagram. So in your brain, the first thing to think about is, if you were to walk into Barnes & Noble, where would your magazine be? So let's click in there. So really what we're saying is we're figuring out how to choose our industry. So are you a wedding Instagram feed? Are you a cooking Instagram feed? Are you fashion? Are you fitness? Are you lifestyle? This doesn't mean you have to be tied down to creating one type of content. I'm going to explain that a little bit further. But if you just know in general what industry you're sharing, are you sharing about parenthood? Are you sharing about just women and women's health? Or is it lifestyle? Or is it home decor or gardening? You know, if you just know your central industry, that is going to help direct all of your content. So at first glance, when someone's like, I'm looking for inspiration for my life, they know that you're the one to go to, or they know the one that you're the one to go to for like recipes to make simple green smoothies. That's an amazing Instagram account. And you just know right when you get there that that's what you can expect from them. So we're going to figure out first what our industry is, what section our magazine's going to be in Barnes & Noble. So this is kind of an example of all of these. You can be one type of industry, but tell your story in very different ways. The Magnolia Journal is a lifestyle magazine. It's home and garden, but they talk about other things as well. They have recipes, they have ads for products, they share behind the scenes of their home DIY renovations. They share stories of other people or businesses that they do business with, like vendors in their store. That is one way to tell a lifestyle story for one specific personal brand, which is Joanna Gaines. On the other hand, there's another lifestyle brand called O Magazine. Oprah is a very different person, but she tells her story in her magazine. She's a central figure in her magazine. She shows up on every cover. You've seen it, you know, and it's all the stories that are important to her. So just because these are two magazines in the same industry, they're completely different and they storytell very differently. And that is the same as Martha Stewart Living. She's a very different person and she chooses to be less present on hers. And while I do believe that it's important to show up on your feed, there's ways to do it, like Martha Stewart, where you're not the central figure necessarily, if you don't want to be. So you get to decide. You get to decide how you tell that story, but understand that just because you're another fitness Instagram account, that doesn't mean you can't be unique and tell your personal brand story and have a specific approach to your content, which is great. So moving on, you get to be the editor-in-chief of your personal brand magazine, which is awesome, right? You're in charge of the story. So very much like Joanna Gaines on Fixer Upper and Magnolia Journal, she gets to decide what she shares in this magazine. So as a person, you live this really full life. There's so many elements to your life and to your business, but you get to decide how and what you're going to tell in your story, which is your Instagram feed. You get to disclose the things that are important to you that you think is going to attract the people to your business and to your brand. So you just get to decide right now. You get to decide what kind of things am I going to promote on Instagram? What about myself as a personal human being am I going to talk about? Am I going to talk about my family? What am I passionate about? Is it food? Is it home decor? Is it design? Is it fonts? Is it my love of calligraphy and me drawing? You get to pick that. And so that is your role as an Instagram account. As if it's your account, you get to be the editor-in-chief of that magazine. Now, what you're going to decide right now are the different content pillars. What are the topics you're going to talk about here on Instagram? So much like that magazine, if you're Oprah, you have to know the things that you're going to include in your articles. Are we going to have every single month? Are we going to talk about food? Are we going to talk about books that we love? She does. She talks about her Oprah's book list, or Oprah's book club. She talks about that every month. So maybe that's one of your content pillars. You're like, I'm going to talk about the things I'm reading or the podcasts I'm listening to. The Magnolia Journal, they include recipes. Am I going to show myself what I have for breakfast once a month or once a week, however that looks? So you get to decide up front, and so you're intentional about it. It's okay to test things. It's okay to just try stuff out. You should. Absolutely. But if you know what kind of stories you're telling in your magazine up front, that will help guide your content. So you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall. You know, these are the 5 things I talk about. I just had a conversation with a client about this yesterday. She decided that on Instagram, she wanted to share all kinds of stuff. She was like, I'm interested in health. I'm interested in fitness. I'm interested in my family and my friends and beauty and fashion. But the product that she sells are supplements. Her product has to do with gut health. So it's like supplements you take to improve your health. So I say, that is wonderful. If you are super interested in all of these things, that just means you're a well-rounded human being. But that's a lot to try to shove into one magazine and have people get that central theme about what you're trying to help them achieve. So maybe for right now, I'm not saying you can't include beauty and fashion, but right now your Instagram account probably needs to focus more on the health aspect, the fitness, your family, your personal struggles, your health struggles that you went through, your mental health struggles. I would focus on that on Instagram right now because that is probably the thing that's going to get your customers to that end goal for yourself. So again, it's great that she's interested in beauty and fashion, but that's not necessarily as super aligned with what she wants to sell as the other things are. So those are just examples for you to think about when you're deciding on the topics. And again, nothing wrong with sprinkling some extra things here and there, like teasers or just testing out, but every week we're trying to show up consistently. So by choosing those content pillars, you know what to have people expect from you. Okay, so now you're going to create your magazine's articles, and these are what I consider 9 grids on Instagram. A lot of you are like, what the heck is a 9 grid? I've never heard of that. So we're going to go into that really quick. A 9 grid is simply a grouping of 3 rows across and 3 rows down with 3 posts across. So if you look right here on the slide, you have a screenshot of my own Instagram account. Now you can take 9 images, any 9 images, and if they're grouped together, visually they align. Now you can make these as aligned as you want, but absolutely I would recommend trying to make them fit visually, because people look at Instagram like that in batches, especially the very first thing that shows up on their feed. It's the very first 9 grid that pops up. That's all they can see of you. So on first glance, if they do not like what they see, they're not ever going to click follow. So you have to make sure that the images are all good on their own, but they all also work together to tell that overarching brand story. So if you want to take one specific 9 grid, you can actually take that 9 grid and tell one story to make sure it fits together better. Now, I don't do that on a daily basis. Usually I break up my week into different themes per day. So I have something like Hot Mess Monday, which you can see in this very top corner up here on the example. I talk about just funny things that happen to me as a mom, or I have Happy Hour Fridays. And so I will just show photos of cocktails and just have a quick wrap up of my week, give a little bit of weekend excitement, stuff like that. I have Instagram Tip Tuesdays, where every Tuesday I share a tip. So you can break those up that way if you would like, but I still found that people that joined my Instagram collaborative Facebook group, so people in that group, and then also my students of my courses, they were still having a hard time. Even though they were trying to come up with these themes, they were still like, gosh, my feed is just not cohesive. So because of that, I was like, you know, let's take a different approach to this. Let's figure out how to make those chunks of content fit together better. And then that way, all the chunks will start fitting together and you will have a cohesive feed. So that's what we're going to do today, is just focus on getting those 9 images, like one set of 9 images, to work together to tell the same story. Because no matter what, no matter who you are, all of your entire feed will tell your overarching brand story. And then you're just telling little stories in between, much like a magazine. Every magazine has different articles within the magazine, but they're all telling the same story and curating what that magazine is all about. So there's that. Let's move on. So why is this important? It just allows you to create the most brand consistent content while telling richer stories. So not only are you treating each little post as one little snippet of something, so most of us that are committed to posting consistently, we will wake up one day and say, crap, I don't have anything to post today. And then you'll come up with something called filler content, where you'll just pick a random quote that you have, or you'll talk about what you had for breakfast that wasn't really have anything to do with anything. You know, you'll just fill up. Have you done it? Yes, totally guilty, right? Everyone does this, because you wake up and you're like, shit, I have to post something, like I'll just post this, you know, and that's just not in your best interest, right? It's not going to help your audience create trust or think you're an expert at anything. So we want to just make sure we're really being intentional about everything we share, because I truly believe in quantity and quality. I absolutely believe that you want to put your best stuff out there on Instagram. And even though that stuff might get tired and you might not feel creative every day, if you have a system and a method and you're planning ahead, you don't have to work so hard every day to be like exciting or inspirational, right? You've done that ahead of time, so you're not having to recreate the wheel every time. And also, it's allowing you to be creative within parameters. I've talked about this in my broadcast before. If you sit me in front of a blank canvas and say paint something, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just draw blanks. I'm not super artistic, but I'm more of an engineer, where if you say, here's your paints, I want you to paint a pear, I'll paint you a damn pear and it will look good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you give me structure, if you give me parameters, if you give me something to go by, I can become more creative and let that art come out in me. Whereas if you're just like, do whatever you want, like I have a harder time. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. Not everyone's like that. If you're someone that's brilliant and you can just whip out stuff every day that's art and that's masterpiece, great, do your thing. But you're probably not here, right? Like you're here to be better. So this is a way that you can get better at that. So moving forward, okay, but how do we do this? How are we going to take this method of Instagramming like a magazine and turning it into an actual feed that you love? Number one, we're going to choose your article story. Number two, we're going to create a 9-grid visual guide to base your project off of. Number three, we're going to curate or create your artwork. Pro tip, you don't have to create everything from scratch. So there's that. And the last part is breaking up your story into 9 parts so you have something to say on every single post. Remember, you're the editor-in-chief, so you get to decide how this looks. You get to decide the different art that you're sharing, the different copy that you're sharing, and you also, this is what's lucky, this makes you kind of more than an editor-in-chief, you get to decide how searchable your content is with hashtags. So that's what you're in charge of, the art, the copy, and the hashtags of all of your posts. So I'm going to give you an example because I don't know how long it's been since you've looked at a magazine, but before I went into this, I was like, do I even have, do those exist, magazines? Is that still a thing? They are. So we're going to look at one that's online, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a visual what I mean by this. So Anthology is a magazine. They're living with substance and style, and I actually found this on Issue. So pro tip, if you don't know what Issue is, they have online magazines. And so if you're ever stuck and you're like, I need a little bit of inspiration about what to do, go there. There's so many free magazines on there that you can like browse through. And while they're all super different, they're all magazines. So they all have different approaches, but they're sharing content very creatively, and they all have articles inside. So we're gonna look at this Anthology magazine. And so this looks fun. And if you want to right now, if you wanna think about your brand adjectives, if you heard someone in the other room describing your brand or your business to a friend, what would you like them to say? If I was describing this magazine to somebody, like to you guys, I'd say this is bright, it's fun, and I would say it is playful. That's how I would describe this magazine based on the cover. And that's what people are doing with your feed. They're making those snap judgments on your cover, which is the very first 9 grid they see. So be intentional. You get to choose. You're the editor. You get to choose what those 3 words are. So think of that ahead of time. Whatever you're posting, make sure if your brand words are fun, playful, and bright, make sure all of your posts are fun, playful, and bright. All of your art should reflect that. So this is an article within that magazine. If you take note, there's text at the corner, and they're telling a specific story. They're talking about a designer and an event planner creating a second home in Miami, and they're filling it with bright, cheery colors. Weird. So in their copy, they're saying bright and cheery, which is the exact thing that I would think about when I looked at that first cover, right? So in your copy, those words, those adjectives, that's what's going in your copy, are the words you want them to think about. Actually say those things, because that will get people to think about that in their brain. Now, if you look too, these are 2 different images side by side. One is indoors, and it's just a scene of someone's home with their sofa, with some fun potted succulents that look like they're stuffed or something, I don't know, but it's bright colors. The next is an outdoor shot of plants. Now, those are 2 very different compositions of photos, which is exactly what we should see on Instagram. What I see on Instagram all the time is people sharing the same stuff over and over and over and over. So even if you're using something like styled stock photography, I'll see people using desktops with keyboards and pens. They use it every post. It's like, okay, we get it, like you work hard, but like let's tell that story creatively and a little bit differently. Styled stock photography is not supposed to be used using the same image with the same composition 1,000 times, right? Don't do that. You have to mix it up like a magazine would. Just like this magazine doesn't just have page after page of interior shots of couches. You have to be creative and tell that story differently too in the visuals. Let's go on to the next page. So this is within the same article. So you can see they have images of an interior, images of outdoor plants. Here they have another interior, more wide setback shot of wall. And then below they have a picture of the homeowner. Like that is what your Instagram feed should have. It should have these different compositions of telling the story visually, but it should also have a picture of you in there. And I am a firm believer that you should show up on your Instagram feed. You should show up, hopefully, every 9 grid. Every time someone scrolls on your feed, every batch of 9 images, your face or a part of your face or a part of your body should be showing, because you are in charge of your personal brand. And so you should be showing up constantly. So you and your husband, that makes it easier because you both are part of your brand. So you can split that up. It doesn't have to be you all the time. You know, if you have a team, if you're like blogettes where there's multiple people on your team, you can totally split that up. But just make sure that the people behind the brand are showing up in that feed, just like this magazine. So let's move over. Oh, and you'll notice too that there's copy, there's text in these articles. So you could actually probably chop those up. You could make one a quote graphic because there's quotes from the designer in here. That is one way you can tell that story visually. You can talk about the products within it. You can talk about what a day in the life would be with these people. That's how you tell this story, breaking it up into 9 different sections. This is another article within that same exact magazine. So that would be 2 different 9 grids. They all fit together. They all belong in this anthology magazine, but these are 2 very visually different stories that they're telling. And that is exactly what your 9 grid can be. It doesn't have to be the same color scheme all the way through, or even the same type of photos all the way through, but it should fit together just like a magazine would. So this one has different typography, which is great, but then it has a very similar typography in the subtitle. So when I go over the visual guide, that's something I'm going to talk about too. When we decide what our 9 grids are going to be, you're going to decide the type of images, also the type of fonts that you're going to be using, the color schemes that you're going to be using for that chunk of story, because that's going to help you create that content easier. It's going to give you those parameters. And here's a bunch of different images. Like you can look at this page and you could totally see that as an Instagram feed. Like you could see these images cropped as squares and it would make perfect sense on someone's Instagram feed, right? And then you just tell that story creatively because it all has very cohesive colors, you'll notice. I love that. So going back to but how, we are going to choose the story. We're going to create that visual guide. We're going to curate or create your art, and you're going to break up the story into 9 parts. And you guys are lucky because the opt-in today does all that for you, which is the best. So first thing we're going to do in the opt-in freebie is when you download it, you are going to get this map. And so the first thing you're going to choose is the 9 grid story. You're going to choose the overarching story you're telling. Now that might be something as simple as week in the life. I'm going to bring you on a tour every day this week about what my life looks like. Or it could be, we're launching a new product. Maybe I'm launching a new collection of the stock brand subscription for August. Maybe that's what I'm doing. That's gonna be my overarching story. Or maybe it's, we're going to Disneyland, I'm so excited. That's the story. Or it could be a kid's birthday, or it could be introducing a new client launch that you're doing. Maybe you just designed a client website and you're launching that. Whatever that story can be, whatever you choose. That's what you put at the very tip top. And then underneath it, this is where we're going to start getting ideas put together. You're going to think about, okay, when I'm telling the story, what are the elements? How can I break this up into 9 different stories? Well, if I'm a web designer, I can say, okay, I'm going to share the inspiration board. I'm going to share a photo of my client. I'm going to share a photo of me, maybe working on my laptop, like a photo of just my arm on my laptop. You can write that down. If you have different themes like I do, like Hot Mess Monday or Instagram Tip Tuesday or any of those things that you want to incorporate, that's where you would put on the second column there is what you want to incorporate with themes. So maybe you have a Work Wine Wednesday. That would be really easy to incorporate in like the website launch story. So just write all that down and the different content types. So content types for me is, am I going to share photos, a styled stock photo, a graphic? Am I going to share a video? Am I going to share a GIF? Whatever I'm deciding the art is going to be is what I'm putting there. And then in the grid is where I'm going to kind of either sketch out, I can draw photos in, or draw pictures in there. I can even screen shoot ideas on Instagram that I see, and I can actually print them out physically. And then like if you're going to be like kindergarten style, cut them out and glue them down. Whatever you need to get that visual in your head to map that out, that's where I start with this. And actually how I use this the most, I love this. If you have an Apple iPad Pro, which is like my favorite thing in the world, there's an app called Adobe Sketch. This is how I use this, is I will screen shoot things there and then I will upload it into Adobe Sketch and then I can write directly on there with my Apple Pen. So pro tip, if that's what you use, I love that. So after we have this story map, then we're gonna move on to creating and curating the content. And your opt-in freebie with the bundle includes stuff. So you actually get a 9-grid guide ready for you. The PSD file is in there, so if you're familiar with Photoshop, you can totally just take that template, change the colors around, change the fonts, upload different images within it. The actual guide itself is a little bit bigger than this. I just wanted to make this square, but you'll get even more information, like image, ideas, things like that. But it's just a way to kind of anchor your 9 grid visually. You don't have to use this every time. Maybe you want to say every third 9 grid, I'm going to use the same color palette. And then I'm going to use a different color palette for the ones in between. Or you can make fresh ones every time, whatever you decide. And also, let me just put a side note. You don't have to think of your 9 grids every single time when you're creating content. If you're like, okay, I'm doing a launch, and so I'm going to do like a countdown, it doesn't have to fit in a 9 grid exactly. This is just help if you need more help to make it visual. If you already have a system that works, you can plug this in wherever you feel like, wherever you get stuck. So don't feel like you have to be super strict. This is not set in stone. That's the one thing I hear from a lot of my students is like, oh, but I'm so stressed, this isn't fitting. I'm like, hey, it's not meant to stress you out. It's meant to like give you a guide to help you feel better about it. Like, it's not rigid. It's totally elastic. You do you, boo. But this is just a good way to get started. So anyway, back to your freebie. You have your 9 grid design guide. You have your story map that you can write out. You also get a bunch of different graphics in there that are already pre-designed and templated. So you'll have that. If you want to post them just like this, you can. Or you get the PSD file so you can make changes if you want. If you want to change that entire quote, change the fonts, it's there for you. And then the last thing you get is a group of images. So you get enough styled stock photos and graphics to fit 3 9 grids. So you'll get 27 images total that all fit together, that all will work in your story. The only thing you need to do, actually I lied, it's not 27, it's actually 24 because there's 3 images missing in those 3 9 grids. Those are for you. That is where you put your face or your arm or whatever. But I want your 9 grids because 3 9 grids times 9 images is 27. I give you 24 images. You have to fill in images of yourself in those last 3. That's the breaks. That's the kicker. Because that's what I believe in. I really do. I believe that you have to show up. So that is what you get in the opt-in, and that helps you do all of the things to tell that story and make sure it's really connected and cohesive. And again, if this does not fit your brand, if you're like hot pink and black, you can totally change all of this. Make this fit you. I just wanted to make sure it fit the presentation, like the brand summit. So that's what I included. But if you need to go find other styled stock photos that would fit better, like Jenna from Twiggy Post or Kate Max from Kate Max Stock, or my stock brand subscription has a whole bunch of different things that are like bright pink. Whatever fits your brand, feel free to use that, but this is just a good guide for you to get started. And that is the presentation. That is everything. So I'm so glad that you guys joined me, and we're gonna go back to Kristen.
Well, thank you. This was like seriously such, I have so many notes. I just like, I don't know if you could see me the whole time, but I'm like jotting down notes in my phone. Such.
That makes sense. Hopefully it was okay.
No, it was perfect. It was so good. And I thought that was, I mean, it was a great presentation. I hope that tons of people got lots out of it. And like that freebie, holy moly, I'm going to be over there like downloading all of it. So, and Rosemary, where can tell us again where we can find you, what you're doing, what's going on with your life?
Yeah, awesome. So you can find me at rosemarywatsonproductions.com or on Instagram at Rosemary Watson. And we're just wrapping up summer right now. Oh, my kids have been out of school, which is only 8 weeks off, but it's like, and it's just really hard for me to get things like going, I feel like, in the summer. So I'm just cannot wait till August 1st. And then I'm going to hit it hard. I got so many things planned on the horizon. We got stuff in my Facebook group happening. I'm going to start, we're going to be launching a podcast soon, which I'm excited about. That'll be
my gosh.
Yeah, it'll be good. And then we're going to relaunch both the style marketing course with Danny Fountain and Jana Bishop of Twiggy Post. We're going to relaunch that. And then we're also going to be launching my Instagram intensive again. So that's going to be really, really fun in the fall. It's super packed right before the holidays, but it's going to be awesome and I can't wait.
So much good stuff going on. And one more time, where's your website where we can find all that information?
Absolutely. It's rosemarywatsonproductions.com.
Thank you again so much, Rosemary. The presentation was amazing, and I hope everybody got lots out of it. It was so great having you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
To everyone still watching, if you haven't yet picked up your ticket to the All Access Pass, now is the time. We have the video plus all of the other speakers' presentations all in one super handy place, and this is the lowest price it will be. We also have all of the incredible opt-ins that the speakers have so graciously provided in the All Access Pass Falls for easy swiping when you're actually ready to get your brand, website, copywriting, and marketing going. If that isn't enough, we're also doing an insane giveaway, you guys. Multiple winners will win the free websites and brands from some of our incredible speakers themselves. We have some incredible giveaways from these speakers, you guys. Show It is giving away 2 year-long subscriptions. Tonic Site Shop and Alyssa Joy & Co. are giving away completely free customizable websites from Show It. Dubsado is giving away 6 months free to their platform, which we use personally and love. Stock photographers Rosemary Watson and Twiggy Post are both giving away year-long subscriptions to their stock photography collections. If you're the kind of person who thinks they never win anything, then this is seriously your chance because we have a ton of winners. If you aren't rebranding this week and want to have access to all of these videos during the time that you are ready to rebrand, you are ready to redo your website or your marketing or ready to take action, then make sure to grab your access pass in the link right below this video. The price is $69 during the summit, and it'll go up immediately after this. Thank you all so much for coming. We can't wait to see you in the next video. Talk to you soon.